All right, and we are here online. Welcome everyone. I'm super excited. Welcome everyone. Super excited to start this live event for Launching Innovation in Schools, the XQ edition. My name is Justin Reich. I'm an assistant professor of comparative media studies at MIT. And along with Peter Senge, I'm one of the faculty in this class. I run a lab at MIT called the Teaching Systems Lab. We investigate the complex technology-rich classrooms of the future and the systems that we need to help educators thrive in those settings. Creating these kinds of online courses for folks in the community of education innovators to get together and have us all learn from one another is just an incredibly fun and incredible honor to have as a part of our job. If you look just to the right of your video window, you'll see a live chat. We hope that folks will introduce themselves in there. Megan Haddadi, who's one of our community TAs, is an amazing educator from the Park School, is there and has introduced herself already. Alyssa Napier and Liz Hutner-Loan, who are both in the MIT MOOC development team, are there as well. And if you're watching this, we'd encourage you to introduce yourself as well. Let us know who you are and where you're from, and the role that you have in your school, and then maybe something that you're excited about for the course ahead. And then at any time at all during the conversation, if you have questions about the course or you have things that you're interested in, please type them up in the live chat, and we can go ahead and answer them.
Come on, Will.
I want to go ahead and introduce two other fabulous colleagues that we have who are part of this with us. The first is Michelle Cahill. Michelle, can you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about who you are and where you're from and what you're excited about for this online class coming up?
Yes. Thanks, Justin. Hello, everyone. I'm Michelle Cahill. I'm the Chief Education Content and Practice Officer at XQ, the Super School Project. Have been involved with XQ from the design and stage and the competition. Co-author of the work in the knowledge modules that some of you may have seen or used. And I am incredibly excited and grateful that MIT and XQ can collaborate with all of you on this course on launching innovation in schools. It's my first online course that I've been involved with, and my background is involves a lot of school design. I've worked with educators, teachers, community people, young people themselves on opening over 200 new district urban schools, public schools, and in partnership with community organizations. I'm really looking forward, in particular, to seeing the kind of work that the teams produce on the graduate profiles. I think that will help all of us so much. Thanks.
Go ahead, Justin, I'll go ahead.
Yes, please. Sorry, I was just unmuting myself. But Monica, yeah, go ahead. Please introduce yourself and say a little bit about some of your background and the things that you're excited about.
Yeah, so I'm Monica Martinez, and I'm with XQ, and I have the distinct pleasure and honor to be able to support the 18 schools who have some kind of award from XQ. And I consider myself a learner always of school innovation and how you implement it. And so I'm really excited to be part of this online course as a learner and as a thought partner and collaborator with MIT. So it's very cool, very curious about what everyone else is doing around the United States. XQ is just not about our 18 schools. We are really about earning a movement. And we know there are many schools out there like those participants on this online course who are trying to make change every day. What I like to say is I believe some of the things that XQ is supporting around our key design principles, every school has some teachers who are doing them, but we'd like to see all high schools doing all of the design principles all of the time. And that's what this course is about. So I'm really excited to be your thought partner, to be the learner along with you, and to think about how you as leaders, from teachers, from principals, to community members, are thinking about change in your community and how we can support you in doing your work. So want to give a shout out to MIT for having this platform and letting XQ have such a major role with you in this work.
Yeah, it's really fun for us because we have a ton to learn as well, from all the experience that the folks on the XQ staff have, from all the great XQ design participants who are involved. I was just, I guess, last week at a conference in California, the Digital Media and Learning Conference. I was doing a workshop on education technology and equity, and was getting to know one of the participants, Jim Stevens, and realized that he is creating a new school in Denver called the Cube School, and was talking about how they participated in the XQ design competition, how for their team it was just a really formative event, and he and his colleagues were really excited to form a learning circle, be part of this learning experience together. And so great to encounter some of the folks in person who are going to be participating in this online course together. Let me give you a little bit of a background about the course and then some of the design features of how the course works, so you can participate in the most effective way possible. If you have questions as I'm going along, please put them in the chat window and I'll take a look and answer them. And then Michelle and Monica, if you want to jump in at any point on any of these things, please do so. My own personal interest in school leadership started about 10 years ago. I started a consultancy that worked with schools and districts to integrate technology into schools. And one of the things that we kept finding over and over again is that anytime schools made a big investment in technology, there were always a handful of places where really amazing work was happening. There was these pockets of excellence in a few classrooms. But what was much less common was that big investments in technology leading to really whole school systemic change. And there are a few places, a few departments or grade levels or schools or districts where you saw really amazing things happening. That seemed like one of the biggest chasms to be able to try to cross, is how do you go from innovation that touches a few parts of a system to innovation that really changes systemically. And it was that particular set of circumstances that motivated my interest in change leadership and innovation and those kinds of things. And for the last 7 or 8 years, I've tried to spend a bunch of time with teacher leaders, with administrators, with school leaders, with school designers, trying to think about and wrestle with these questions. About a year ago, partnered with Liz and Alyssa and some of the folks in the MIT MOOC team, as well as Peter Senge, who's this fabulous organizational behavior expert, a management professor at the Sloan School of Management here. And Peter is very well known. He's one of the top 25 management thinkers of the 20th century. He wrote a great book called The Fifth Discipline. He's worked in all kinds of sectors, from healthcare to manufacturing around the world, but he's also done a ton of work in education, and has some really incredible experience, and has certainly shaped a bunch of my thinking about leadership, particularly in terms of the human dimension of leadership and the power of communication and of relationships. So those are the kinds of experiences that are baked into the course. And we're particularly interested in creating learning experiences for you all, where you don't just learn, a lot of theory and a lot of ideas and talk about stuff and then think about applying it someday in the future. But we really want to encourage you to bring to this course a bias to action. The idea that if there are ideas or insights or practices that inspire you, we hope to create a set of circumstances where you can just start putting those ideas to work in your own contexts right away. One of the ways that we think you can do that most effectively is if you take this course with other colleagues. So hopefully a bunch of you have signed up with other people who are in your community, other folks who are on your XQ design team, or other people who are working on it with you on school innovation or school design projects right now. We call the groups that you form learning circles. We hope that most of you will participate in learning circles in one form or another. There are lots of ways that different learning circles operate. Some of the most effective ways we found are when people in a learning circle make a little bit of extra time each week to get together in person, over lunch, over dinner, in the morning, in a prep period, whenever you have, to talk about and reflect about what you're learning as you're doing work independently for the course. And we have a facilitator's guide, which you'll find online in the courseware, which gives you some ideas about how you might be able to spend some of this time together. So the bias to action is an important part of the course. The learning circles are an important part of the course. If it turns out you're taking the course by yourself, that's great. We're thrilled that you're here. We'll take all comers in any way possible, but we certainly encourage you to take the course with other colleagues. And if you'd like to invite other folks into the course, feel free to do so as well. Great to see that Rita is here from Northern Illinois with a few of her learning circle members. Glad to have these teams coming and joining us. The course, you'll hear a lot about loops and spirals and cycles. The way that Peter and I think about innovation is really shaped by the idea of iteration, that very few brilliant major changes happen because you do this massive period of planning and then you roll things out and it happens just the way you planned, but rather a lot of change happens when you get in the world and start trying new things, building prototypes, testing them. The vice president of open learning, Sanjay Sarma, and I were joking with some colleagues last week that, in the 20th century, management had an awful lot of ready, aim, fire, and a lot of what we're experimenting with engineering and with change leadership is ready, fire, aim. That we get things out there, we see what we learn from early prototypes, and then we change them over time. So in this first unit of the course that you have access to, it's called Launching Innovation in Schools. It's kind of an overview of the whole course. Then we'll dive more deeply into 4 particular elements, bringing people together around ideas they care about, refining a vision and getting to work, working together through ups and downs, and then measuring progress and adjusting. We've run this course as a wide open public MOOC before, but the version that you're in has been tailored very specifically to serve the needs of folks who have participated in the XQ design competition. So you'll see a lot of great XQ materials that are woven throughout the course. We expect that a lot of you will have been exposed to this great work that Monica and Michelle developed in the past, but some of you it may be new to, and hopefully for those of you who have seen it before, it'll be useful to see it in new context and go back and deepen your understanding of those pieces. In each unit, you'll find, the other thing that we did to sort of tailor the course is that we really try to focus it more on the experience of people who are really working in high school innovation. And as Michelle eloquently talks about, there's lots of ways that that's different from innovation in other kinds of parts of the education system. There are 3 sort of modes of learning that we have within each unit of the course. There are 3 different kinds of things we'll ask you to do. The first are expert presentations. So Peter and I and some other folks will share with you some of our ideas about launching innovation in schools and about change leadership. And then associated with those are a series of visions of practice or case study videos. So for all the things we talk about, we try to take you into the field with schools that are working on these same kinds of issues. In some cases, they're doing a really exemplary job. In some cases, they're just admirably sort of muddling through and working things out and dealing with challenges that we think are interesting and important. So we try to illustrate all of the ideas about change leadership that we talk about with examples from schools that are mostly actually in our area around New England. And then the third part of the course are activities and assignments. And so whenever possible, anytime we introduce a theory or anytime we introduce a set of ideas, we hope that there are practices that you can do that are associated with those. Some of those practices will invite you to do online in some kind of way. Some of them will ask you to do in your community and then report back how they went online. And then for a number of them, for things that you might do online as practices, we also have what we call takeout packages, which is if you find something that you think is really useful as a practice that you did with us online, we give you some instructions for how you might be able to do that with your school design team, with your department, with your assistant principals, with whoever it is that might be helpful with. But those 3 elements of the course, expert presentations, case studies, voices in practice, and assignments and activities sort of form the backbone of the course. People use the course in all kinds of different ways, sort of flexibly on their own terms, and we certainly encourage you to do that. If you want to take pieces of the course and share it with broader parts of your community, you're more than welcome to do that. We saw lots of people in past versions who use the takeout packages to do professional development or with faculty meetings or other kinds of things like that. If folks have other questions for me or Michelle or Monica, then feel free to ask. We have no particular additional agenda for this time, just interested in answering whatever questions that you might have about participating in the course or content you see or just things you want to know more about XQ or MIT. So if you have these kinds of questions, feel free to raise them in the chat window over here on the right. But maybe I'll start with a question for Monica and Michelle. So, one thing that I would be interested in is sort of thinking back over the last 6 months as we've been working together in developing this and designing this. One of the things that we've been trying to do is sort of weave together some of the ideas and thinking that XQ has and some of the ideas that Peter and I had and our team had in sort of pulling together this course. I wonder if there are particular moments that you remember in that design process where you said, oh yeah, this is a value that we clearly both really share in common. This is something that's really important to both of us, and it's great that it is, because this thing is really important. I think those will be some of the kinds of things that maybe some of the folks taking this course will recognize from the XQ design process as well. But Michelle or Monica, is there anything that you can think back of as we've been working together for the last few months to design this, where you go, oh, that was really a sort of important point of connection?
Sure, I could start.
Great.
So I think at the very beginning, Justin, when you were talking about Peter and Peter, as I know, Peter Senge's systems thinking and the importance of that in schools, I thought that was very similar to what we've talked about and try to put forth in XQ and in the XQ design principles, which is that there needs to be an integration of students at the center, but an integration of what the mission of the school is, the bold idea for the school, what the school and the educators in the school want to be accountable for as what we want our students to know and be able to do, and what they'd be like, and how that all is a system. It's not a system in the way we often talk about it, when that has a connotation of bureaucracy. It's a system in the dimension, and I think this is what we share, in the dimension that it integrates, or you have going at the same time practice, what we're doing, our theory, what we believe is needed, and the conditions that we're working under. And that's why it has to be iterative and have expertise coming from different places, people taking different kinds of leadership roles, and a lot of participation.
Yeah, absolutely. Peter has a great section in the course where he tries to get people thinking about systems by talking about the family as a system, which is a great analogy that's different from the bureaucracy as a system. But families are systems in the sense that all the times our actions have unintended consequences, and part of the way that we iterate towards happiness is by better understanding how our actions affect in ways that we intend and don't intend the people around us. What were you thinking, Mark? I cut you off. I know you're going to jump in there.
Yeah. No, I think it's great. I think what I love so far is I think it is the systems thinking. And so just for the folks who are listening today, when we sat down to see how to merge the work of what MIT has already done so successfully with this course and the XQ design principles, that we were supporting two things: a change management system, right? And that we're also trying to democratize innovating in high school, and that we don't want that to be available to only people who have funding to hire bus technical assistants or professional development provider. And I think that's what really appealed to XQ around this MOOC, around the SPOC, is that we want to continue to democratize high school redesign, and we want to continue to always push out lessons. I think both Michelle and I, we've spent our entire last part of our lives anyway around high school redesign. We know there is a foundation of knowledge how to rethink in high schools, and there's also foundational knowledge around implementation and change management, and that this was a ruling those together that fulfilled the promises of democratizing high school redesign, and also using the foundational research that's out there around change management and around reform, innovation, whatever term we want to put to it. And then I think I'm always driven by the quote by Richard Elmore around reform is only as good as it impacts the classroom. And that's really the passion that I bring around deeper learning, and the book that I wrote around that is that whatever one of the day, how does it impact that student's learning experience? And again, that's why this course is so important, because that's at the center.
Yeah, that idea of democratizing education just seems so powerful, and democratizing sort of innovation. One of the things that we've been thinking about a ton, one of the things that I've been thinking about a ton is just the continued recognition of how sort of granular innovation is in education. There are some fields where you could say, hey, there's a better way we want to do this, and we'll sort of train the whole staff to do it that way. And they'll just keep doing that sort of new, better practice. If we say that we want to have more active participatory learning in high school, then we have to say, well, what does that look like in 9th grade and 10th grade and 11th grade and 12th grade? What does it look like in math and science and social studies and English? What does it look like on October 27th, on October 28th, on October 29th? The work of teaching and learning is so granular. And part of what that means is that any kind of meaningful innovation that changes students' lives, in part, is going to have to come from teachers. There's no one else in the system who has enough, for whom we have enough person hours and who has enough closeness to the work other than teachers to be able to generate those innovations. And in fact, a lot of what we end up talking about in the course is how incredibly important that teacher leadership is, and what a responsibility folks who are not teachers, who are administrators, who are outside consultants, who are professional developers, whoever else, to support and nurture peer-to-peer learning. One of the things that I'm most excited about the course, and Michelle mentioned it before, is in earlier versions of the course, we definitely encourage people to think about what their goals are, what they think really powerful learning environments are. But one, I think, really useful intervention that Michelle and Monica and Anne have offered to us is to really focus on this idea of a graduate profile, to really think about, all right, so if you have really great learning environments, what are the outputs of those learning environments? What does it look like, when someone walks across a stage in May or June, having spent 4 or 12 years with you, what is it they're able to do? What kinds of beliefs do they have? What kinds of learning experience do they have? What kinds of things are they prepared for? And can we characterize that? Can we prioritize that in our own community? What are some of the things that we sort of care most about there? And then you've got all these powerful tools of the XQ learning goals, of the performance measures, and these other kinds of frameworks that XQ has, I think, a great set of resources to help folks think about that. For folks who are just joining us, if you thanks for introducing yourselves in the chat window. If you have any questions that you want to be able to answer, or that you want us to answer or chat about, if you have questions about the course, if you have questions about XQ or MIT or anything like that, please let us know, and we're more than happy to answer those questions and see if we can respond to your needs. You're certainly welcome to continue to ask us questions moving forward. So there's a bunch of great ways to reach us otherwise. We have a set of forums that exist in the courses that we hope everyone will use very regularly as part of your learning experiences. Really, probably the most valuable resource that we have in the course is all of the people who participate in it. So we have a bunch of resources and activities that are meant to spark engagement with one another, but ultimately you have much more to learn from each other than you have to learn from any one of us individually. So if you have questions for the XQ team or the MIT team or me, please feel free to put them in the courses. Put them in the forum so that we can chat about them. Otherwise, another great way to reach me, I'm pretty accessible on Twitter if people have questions as things are going along. For other folks on Twitter, we'll use the hashtag, and I'll put it in here in the chat. LISSXQ is our hashtag, launching innovation in schools XQ for this community. If there are other resources that you want to be able to connect with, or you want to be able to connect with Twitter, please go ahead and do so. Want to say hi to Ben, who just joined us, and Tiffany. Great to have you both here in the conversation with us. And if folks have questions, you should feel free to let us know, and we'll try to answer them as we're going along. Great to have somebody from the Walkabout Peg, from the Walkabout Education Foundation here. Big thumbs up from all the other folks.
Justin,
yeah.
I had one other thought about, as you were talking, about a hope that I have for the course, which is we've, put forth some thinking on XQ learning, which is really a way of talking about broadening outcomes that high schools will adopt for students, for the graduate profile you're talking about. And they really come from what young people need in our such rapidly changing society, the complexity of skills like analysis, synthesis, with fundamental literacies and numerical thinking, very challenging foundational knowledge integrated with those skills and with the attributes of learning for life. That will never get real until we get it to the granular level of being demonstrated, finding creative ways of doing practice, teaching, and learning that activates young people toward those. We know much more now about what we need to do than how to do it. And I think that this is going to be such an important community of educators to advance that conversation in the country.
One of the things I love about that framing of what we need to do and how we need to do it is that, to me, that sort of positions our knowledge like right at a frontier. We like know roughly the direction to go. We can see the destination that we're headed to. But boy, we don't know, we have some ideas about exactly how to get there, but we don't know precisely how to do it. And that's part of what we need innovators to be inventing for us, to be sort of blazing these trails. And that's why it's so great to have different folks here. Mary Todoric asked a great question. What's the makeup of our class? How many registered participants? What parts of the country are represented? I know that there are about 500 people who have signed up for the course. And one of the things we hope is that there are other folks who are part of the course that you'd like to invite. We'd be happy to have you do so. We invited a list of about 10,000 folks who had in some form or another participated in the XQ design process. So that's one thing that I think just about all of you will have in common, is that you're all at least sort of 1 degree removed from folks who participated in that. So that's a bit of the characteristic of the class. What parts of the country are represented? That is a really interesting question, and I need to figure out how much we can know about that quickly. And maybe if Liz and Alyssa might be online and in the chat window, they may be able to pull up some data about what states folks are from. Typically, the diversity of people that we can bring into these courses is pretty terrific. And so my hunch is going to be that folks are from all kinds of parts of the country, and for all of, even just with what we've mentioned here, Monica is sitting in California, I'm in Cambridge, Massachusetts, Michelle's in New York, Peg's from New York, Jenny's from rural West Virginia. I think Tiffany said that she was from Illinois. Ben said he was from New Jersey. Mary said that she was from outside Chicago. Amy said she was from outside Louisiana. So even if we only have 15 or 20 folks who are participating in this, we can pretty quickly get quite a few people from all around the country. And I suspect we're going to find that there are many more. Well, maybe as one last question to think about and encourage all of you to think about too, one of the first things that we'll ask folks to do in the course is to think about what are some of the characteristics of a powerful learning environment? What are some characteristics of places that when you walk into, the sort of hair on the back of your neck stands up, and you just get really excited to see about the kinds of teaching and learning that are happening there. And Michelle and Monica, it would be great to hear about sort of in your recent travels and getting to visit all of these great schools and the innovative schools you've been a part of. What's one example of a really important characteristic of a powerful learning environment? Maybe you can think about a place that you've been to recently that shares that. And then for any of you who are on the live chat, we'd love to hear from you as well. What are some of your initial thoughts on what a really powerful learning environment looks like? So let us know too, and let's see if we can start aggregating a list. But yeah, Monica, go ahead.
Yeah, when you used that word earlier, Justin, I was like, oh, I want to hear what they think is a powerful learning environment, right? So for XQ, we've really kind of, there's two things, and Michelle already already talked about it. And one is like, you know, the XQ learner goals. So many times people begin to say, you know what I want to do in my school? I want to do flipped classrooms. You know what I want to do? I want to do internships. I want to do project-based learning. But sometimes they forget to start with the end in mind. And so what are those learning goals and what are those outcomes do you want your students to be able to know and do? So I think, again, just to kind of emphasize Michelle's point, where that's why we're very excited about the graduate profile, because sometimes people don't start with that. They start with what they think is sexy, innovative, cool, or something they've always wanted to do that's effective. And so for us, we start with the learner goals, but we also start with very specific design principles. And we had 13 knowledge modules that kicked this off during the competition and challenge phase. But what I've been really most excited about across our schools is the community partnerships. And I would just call it the teaching for deeper learning or the dynamic teaching and the mix of two of them. So many times when people think about community partnerships, they think about an internship, they think about an apprenticeship, they think about a field trip. But how do you actually really integrate partnerships in the very day-to-day learning experiences with students? And so you can do that at a teacher level, absolutely. You can always say, what's my field-based experience going to be to help develop a specific outcome, to address a certain standard, to give the students a certain experience. But some of our sites have really clear and tight partnerships, right? So we have Grand Rapids that's going to be located in a museum, and they're going to really focus on community and place-based learning. We have a school that's in a pilot phase called Circulos in Santa Ana, California, that's going to have students learning in community-based organizations or businesses 2 to 3 days a week. When they're not learning with those businesses 2 to 3 days a week as kind of their core foundation location they go to, they're going to be doing blended learning of the A through G college going curriculum here in California online. And they'll also have workshops and lectures with teachers. So there's also a diversity of experiences that the students will have access to, but there's a lot around co-location. There's a lot around just actually integrating learning experiences with partnerships. And that's really one of the most exciting, I think, powerful learning environments I see, is that mix of teaching for deeper learning that is supported and integrated with community partnerships.
That's great. Michelle, do you have similar thoughts on powerful?
Yeah, I was paying such close attention to Monica that I forgot I was going to be called on. We could pick up on Monica's in one really interesting school is Iowa Big, which is in Cedar Rapids. I'm also thinking about the geographic diversity because it's 3 districts in which teachers have led the way in creating experiences for students in high school that are learning experiences in which they are standards-based, but they are deeply experiential. And the teachers have mapped the experiences with partners in business and in community and in the arts to the English and math standards and what the assignments are. So it's a very, very creative, teacher-led, but it's also a school design because it's innovation then in all of those schools, right? In which students they're using time differently, they're using space and facilities where they are differently, and also they're team teaching in different ways. So that would be another, I think, really interesting systems thing, because they had to figure out how you met state standards, how you gave young people experiences that broaden their sense of possibility, but also how you work with teachers across schools.
That's great. No, it's really exciting. And I think, it's those kinds of examples. It's the examples that many of the folks in this course are working on that are going to shed new light on what's possible and how we can reimagine what great schools look like. I think a lot about in powerful learning environments, what the relationships between teachers and students look like and how teachers find different ways to express their care, to express their really deep belief about what's possible for students, about the imaginations they have for how students can can grow and develop, and you know, the commitment that they have to those kids and to helping them, you know, create new futures and lead new lives. I think about that a lot. It was really important to me when I was a high school teacher, but I think about it a lot in the online context because it's very different online, communicating an ethic of care and building relationships than it is when you can pat people on the shoulder as they walk into your classroom and ask them how their day was doing and things like that. But one way or another, I've got to show very clearly that I'm super grateful for all the folks who spent some time with us this afternoon introducing yourselves from all across the country. I'm grateful to all of you who are watching this recorded afterwards. Hope it's been a useful introduction to the kinds of things that we're going to be wrestling with together in this course. As you have other questions, ask them in the forum, ask them on Twitter, get in touch with us however else. We're super grateful that you've formed these communities to come in and join the course, and are incredibly excited to be learning with you over the course of the next 7 weeks or so. Michelle or Monica, do you have parting thoughts to send our friends from around the country off with?
I do. Michelle, go ahead. I do too, but go, Michelle.
Yeah, sure. Well, one of the things I wanted to say, which is about gratitude to all of you participating, but it's you're invited to this because of your stepping up and saying that you were an innovator. You wanted to do you had ideas for a super school. And there were so many rich ideas that we need to spread further. And this is the opportunity, since everyone didn't have the opportunity to get funded in the way that we would hope if we had, you know, I guess $1 gazillion, but that so many of you and your teams have continued working, and this is a way both to, we believe with MIT, deepen the work, but also spread the work among you and help us as well.
Yeah, I think my comments are very similar to Michelle, and to support what Justin was saying was, tell us who you are. You know, make sure you guys are filling out your profile and introducing yourself on the class, and, you know, tell us where you are in your own process over the time as well. Not just through this course, but where you've come in your own journey thus far. So just want to encourage everyone to share on the forums and to share through the introductions. So Justin and everyone can answer the questions, who's in this class and what's everyone doing?
That's great. Well, thank you, Monica. Thank you, Michelle, for taking some of your midday in California or afternoon here to get folks started. Thanks all of you who introduced yourselves online. Thanks a ton to XQ and the Emerson Collective for supporting us at MIT so that we could do this work together. We're incredibly excited to be in community with all of you for the next few weeks. If we can help you out at all in any other additional ways, let us know. Otherwise, have a wonderful weekend, and we look forward to getting all the learning started together. Bye, everyone. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.